I really wanted to talk about this after having spent over 30 years in the military. Um, After retiring, and for the past 6 or 7 years or so, I sort of reflected back on how I felt getting out of the military, and immediately after that. So I spent 30 years in, mostly combat arms. And so you can imagine that the thoughts that I had upon retiring is what the heck is a guy that's used to shooting rifles and tanks going to do out in the real world? So I think that's what brought us to this point. And the fact that I've got friends and soldiers that I mentor that are now at this point. Oh, man, it's been a while. I can't believe that. It's been about 10 years. So now I got those young soldiers getting ready to retire. And I want to sort of enlighten them a little bit before they get out here in the real world.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So you've been retired now for 10 years.
Yeah, I've been retired. Well, actually, a little bit more than that. Man, you're making me go back in time here. I've been retired since 2010.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, right at 11 and a half years.
Now, for some of our military folks out there, I know you said you were combat armed. Do you want to get a little specific and kind of tell us what you did and kind of like your progression through your military career?
Yeah, so I started out on enlisted scale. For those military people out there, 19, old cavalry scout, almost infantry guy, but a little bit smarter. We learned not to walk and do things. So I progressed up through the ranks there, through your normal ranks, NCO ranks, up through the rank of sergeant major, working at such jobs, starting out as squad leader, moving up to platoon sergeant, first sergeant, battalion, brigade, division level sergeant majors. So quite a bit on the leadership side. Yeah. And that meant I probably thought more about soldiers than myself. And that's just how it is whenever you work those kind of positions in the military.
I really appreciate you sharing that with us, because I too was military, and I was on the enlisted side of the house as well. Didn't quite make it to sergeant major, but I had a lot of friends that had some serious concerns about why, and that's fine. I'm grateful for the career that I actually had, and I learned a lot, and I met a lot of great people while I was during that particular time. Not just during that time, but after the military as well. And the military kind of served as that piece to where we could connect with one another. So I greatly appreciate that. And I really thank you for sharing that with us. Here's one of the things I really want to ask, and I don't think a lot of people in the civilian sector understand a great deal about it. When it comes down to the progression from, throughout your military career on the enlisted side, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm bashing, or I don't want it to sound like a bashing party, but how well, on the average, how well do you think most soldiers, enlisted soldiers, how well do you think most of them are prepared for life after the Army?
So, you know what? I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to base it on my own perception. I'm going to say not very well prepared at all. Because we don't think about that. When you're in the Army, it's a family, and you tend to get in that family, and you don't want to ever think about leaving that family.
Yeah.
So unless you meet that person that's going to give you some kind of guidance and make you start preparing, you're not going to think about it. I mean, it's just human nature.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%, because I was that guy. I was the be all you can be guy. I just want to be a great soldier, man. I'll be honest with you. And I dedicated my time, energy, and efforts into being physically fit, knowing my job, and making sure I'm taking care of the people to the left and to the right, and right of me. And then when I became a NCO, and especially become senior NCO, I started looking at things differently. I'm like, this is going to come to an end one day, and I may not want it to come to an end, but that's reality. And so it got to the point to where I started mentoring younger soldiers and telling them that you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to, go sign up for college courses, get a degree, all of that great stuff. Sad part about it, I was not there. I didn't have a degree. I didn't get my degree until after I retired. So I greatly appreciate you sharing that with us, because I think you're right. I don't think we, for the most part, I don't think we're really that well prepared, enlisted wise. And I say that because most officers come in with their degrees, and then there's possible opportunities.
I'm going to have to agree with that. And even those that did get their degree while they were enlisted wasn't really looking forward or thinking forward to how they were going to use it. It was more so saying, hey, I know I need a degree. Okay, so I'm going to get a degree in whatever I can get a degree in.
Yeah.
We're not really thinking about, is it really a degree that we're going to be able to use later? And especially if we get that degree early on. Let's say we have 10, 12 years in and we start working on the degree program. We're not thinking about 10 years from now, or in my case, 20 years past that.
Yeah.
You can believe that, I got that easy to get degree while I was in the military. Psychology, you know that, right? We're born with that degree.
Yeah, yeah.
But as I got closer to the end of my career, I did realize that that degree wasn't going to do very much for me. And so I knew that even though I was retired, I was going to end up going back to school if I really wanted to get out in the world and make an impression on people.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you kind of talked about it, get out of the world and make impression on. So what do you do now?
So now I work for the Cyber Command at Fort Gordon, Georgia, facilitating courses for Captain's Career Course, young lieutenants just entering the Army. Both great jobs to have. I tell you that because you get to see exactly what these soldiers are getting from your past experience.
Yeah,
best job in the world. I think a lot of people like me that stay in for 20 or 30 years. You don't want to give up the military.
Yeah.
Typically, what we do is we move on and we do some other work that supports the military in some kind of way, which is exactly what I did. So I've been doing this since 2016.
Yeah.
So right at the 5-year mark. And I don't think I'm going to give it up anytime soon.
So I got to tell him myself, right? So James is actually my coworker. We work together. And I would tell you, I know for a fact that he has a love for what he does. And he's 100% correct. It just feels like now this is our opportunity to give back. And, we not only just teach we teach Army doctrine, but we teach it to such a degree to where we use our experiences to kind of bring those lessons to life. And so we give them a little more than what the doctrine requires. And the intent is just kind of, just the desire to help them do and be better than what we were when we were in the Army. So now I greatly appreciate that, James. So now here's the big thing, right? So you've had a successful military career. You've reached the pinnacle of your pay, of the enlisted scale. So you was at the top of the food chain, right? And then you retired and now you've moved on to a successful career. What do you think your biggest learning curve in the transition piece was?
So I'm going to say the biggest learning curve was learning that you had to start over again. Like in most corporations, you're not going to start at the top, which if you're in the military and you stayed in, you made it up the chain up point. You look at yourself sort of at the top of the totem pole.
Yeah.
You got to come to the mindset that, hey, those days are behind you now. So you got to be willing to say, you know what? I know that I'm not going to be starting at the top. I know that I'm going to be working with people much younger than me at some point. And you got to be willing to accept that. I think that a lot of people go out with the wrong expectations. And that is that they're relying on what they did in the military. And it doesn't matter what the job is. Some of that does carry forward. But other parts of that, hey, people don't care what you used to do. And so I think that's the biggest learning curve is being able to connect those dots and to be able to input yourself in a way that you're not becoming cumbersome or impacting the organization in a bad way. So you got to bring what you have to the game, I'm going to say. Just like we talk Super Bowl, bring what you got to the game, right? And know what you can do to get to the goal line. And I think that's the biggest curve is a lot of people go into it thinking that I'm already at the goal line.
Yeah.
Went 50-yard line, and we got to get in the red zone. And so that's the way I look at it. The biggest curve is understanding yourself and understanding that you're really beginning a new life.
Man, that's so good. And I like the way you put it, right? Because I would tell you, I learned a lot about myself when I transitioned. It's funny because I was so dependent upon the processes that the Army had created. And
exactly.
Yeah. And
what we know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so once I transitioned, I'm like, man, these people aren't going to do this for me. I can't go to this office and make a request and have them do it and have an expectation for it to be done by a particular point in time. I have to be open to their processes, their timeline, those things. And it was a very steep learning curve. And the piece that I would add to as well is just being aware, right? Being aware of what's available to you on the backside of the military. Because you have that transition. You have the military, then you have that transition to civilian life, and then you have civilian life. Well, here is a very pivotal moment, that transition to civilian life. And this is what I consider gray space for me. Because I was like, I'm telling you, man, I was like a young kid again. I had no idea what was going on. It was like I was just following in line. If they say go do this, go do it. And so that's where I learned the most, because now hindsight 2020, I could have done this, I could have done that, I could have done this
Right.
better, I could have put more time and energy here. And then we're not even going to talk VA because that's a whole nother process.
Yeah. Let's not get into that. That's
Yeah.
a new podcast there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it is. To be honest with you, it definitely is. It's going to be a great one as well. But it's just those things, right? And so when you look at that transition piece, you having a life to where you know what time you got to be to work, you know what time you're getting off, you know what time, you know what you're wearing based upon PT, what time you got to be to work, meetings, like everything was so structured. And it's not that civilian life isn't structured, it's just a different type of structure.
Dwayne, what I wished I would have done is that I would have reached out to peers that had already retired.
Yes.
I was more focused on being around those active duty people like myself.
Yeah.
Versus reaching out to them and ask them what issues do they have with their transition.
Yeah.
And I think that would have helped me along. Not that I had a terrible transition, but I think it would have made it a whole lot easier.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I would tell you, I was fortunate because when I was like a real big gym rat, so I would go to the gym, and in the gym during lunchtime, it's nothing but retirees. So I would get those conversations. Hey, come here, young buck. Let me talk to you real quick. And so you know me, I'm humble. Hey, what's going on, man? Hey, have you done this? No, sir. Go do that. And so I was a student. It didn't matter what they told me to do, I would go do it because I figured they knew best. And I would tell you a lot of that advice actually paid off. Now, just like you, I agree that things that I had questions about, I wish I had reached back and talked to those guys that have been retired for years. And that way got some of their insight, their experiences, and just grew from there. But hindsight being 2020, and I think we learn in spaces like this right here. So what would be one of the final thoughts? Because I know you're a busy guy and I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time, but what would be a final thought that you want to leave with our audience so that they can actually take and put into play?
So the biggest final thought that I'm going to leave is educate yourself. Know what it is that's needed out there. It fits within your skill set. The other thing is, don't be afraid to go back to school.
Yeah.
Not be afraid to go back to school. I have so many people that I talk to that, hey, I'm 45, I'm 50, I'm this. And I'm like, well, guess what? You're going to be 51 next year. You have a year of school behind you already. So
Absolutely.
the biggest thought is you still need the education. Doesn't matter if you have one career behind you, but you will need that education for that new step in life that you're going to take.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And that's just the concept of being a lifelong learner. I think that's something that we have to take personal responsibility in doing. And so that's definitely great advice. And good to see that I'm in line because I'm in school right now. So I definitely appreciate you sharing.
I appreciate you having me here today.
So with that being said, man, if anybody want to reach out to you and get some, points on transition or life after the military or whatever, where can they find you in the digital space?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I don't do the Facebook thing. That turned into too much drama stuff. But pretty much LinkedIn, you can always find me there. I do have a couple of YouTubes up on various things. Mostly had to do with automobiles, that kind of stuff. Hey, but we can talk cars and we can talk life experience at the same time. And I found out that when you're doing your passions and you mix in other kind of businesses, it's usually remembered more than normal.
Yeah, that is good. That's real good. And what I would tell you that he's real big on cars. I've seen I've seen some of the pictures. I've seen one of his cars. And man, I'm telling you, he's after those muscle cars, man. They're beautiful. I just can't do it. I drive too fast. So James, thanks for being a part of the show, man. We greatly appreciate you. And I hope that all of our listeners listen to the wealth of information that came from him. And trust me, he only gave you a snippet of what he actually has in his head. I'm telling you, very intelligent guy, very humble, very down to earth, and very user friendly. So I'm sure if you reach out to him and ask some type of advice, he'll be more than willing to help you. So again, thank you, James, and thank you for being a part of the Empowering Perspective community.
Thank you.